our man Ariel Helwani, standing by in Dallas, where the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fights will be taking place, man. Ariel, what do you got for us, brother?
Hello, gents. How are you? Good to be back on the program. Miss you all. Miss you all. I mean,
Hotel room
It
looks
looks
great,
nice
man.
over
I have to
there.
say,
It's
I don't know how much
not
you
bad.
miss this, man. Dallas is looking
I
pretty
mean,
nice.
I gotta say, this Netflix era off to a flying start.
What
They
size is
treat
that
us
TV
well.
behind you, man? That looks like an 85-incher or something.
Listen. It's not about the TV here. It is a nice TV, I have to say.
Can we see the mini bar? What do we got?
I've already I once traveled with Frank, and we were in Las Vegas, and he actually thought that the mini bar was on the house. And so I'll never forget this, because I think how many gummy bears and cashews and pistachio bags did you have, Frank, on that trip?
I stopped counting at some point. I was like on a sugar high.
There he is. No, it's great to be here. Landed about an hour or so ago. Did have to sort of wedge my way into the Boys in the Back program. This is becoming a bit of a theme. I was like, hey guys, I would love to talk about some breaking news if you want me, or you can have someone else. But I am happy to be on here, and obviously Wednesdays is when we usually do the AH show. You guys were kind enough to fill in for me, but it is good to be on here to talk about some breaking news. So let's get into some breaking news. I started to hear about this about 36 hours or so ago, and I find it to be fascinating for multiple reasons. The actual news is what you just mentioned, DC. For this card, and they informed all the fighters of this yesterday. Tuesday is the typical historical check-in day, and that's an important little factoid, which I'll get back to in a moment. They told them all that, hey, good news, we're going to be using the old gloves for this card on Saturday, UFC 309. Now, some fighters were even told that they'll be using the old gloves for the next two pay-per-views. That's UFC 309 and 310, December 7th in Las Vegas. Others were not told that. Specifically, no one was actually told why. No one actually said, hey, we're not happy, with the gloves. We're not happy with the lack of knockouts. We're not happy with this, manufacturing default. No one was actually, from the people the multiple sources that I spoke to, no one was actually told the specific reason. All they were told was, hey, old gloves for this one. A lot of these guys have never used the new gloves before because it's their first time fighting. As you mentioned, they only introduced them in June, but some of them have used the new gloves. So, it's a bit of a change. And the vast majority of them trained in the new gloves because that's what they would do for people who are, getting to try them and fight with them for the first time. They will send you the gloves so that you can get used to them and get comfortable. That makes total sense, and it's the fair thing to do. And so not a lot of, to the best of my knowledge, questions were asked. But let's see really if they are used for 310. This is very atypical for the UFC. They don't usually introduce something and say, hey, we don't like it, we messed up, we're going back to the old. Maybe they modify, maybe they tinker, but definitely don't go back to the old, especially when you consider the massive to-do that they put on the press presentation, the press conference, all that stuff, the material that they gave us, the slideshows, the videos, all that stuff. They definitely don't go back. And so it has led to some questions. And when I posted this yesterday, when I reported this yesterday on social media, I just left it at that. Now, I had a feeling that people would do the A plus B equals C. And so let us get into that real quickly, because the vast majority of the replies that I saw were, oh, this is because of Jon Jones. Jon Jones has never used the new gloves. Jon Jones has openly talked about, extending the fingers, as you see in this photo right here. He has been accused of doing it on purpose. He has been accused of not doing it on purpose. His opponents have said he extends to poke the eye, to gain an advantage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what is the number one thing that we were told about the new gloves? It was that the new gloves would help curtail and literally curve the hands to avoid eye pokes. Perhaps we could talk about whether or not that has actually come to fruition, but a lot of people brought this up, and I do think it is a fair point to raise for multiple reasons. Lest we forget, back in 2018, the UFC moved a card essentially on fight week, a couple of days before fight week officially began, maybe 9 or so days, if memory serves me correct, the rematch against Alexander Gustafsson, due to an atypical finding in a pre-fight drug test for Jon Jones. They moved the card, if you recall, from Las Vegas to Inglewood, California, in an unprecedented move. Prior to that, and since then, we have not seen something like this happen. They have been known, to do things for Jon Jones that they would never do for anyone else. Let's be honest. I mean, there's maybe 2 people on the roster in the history of the sport that they would do something like that for. Conor McGregor would obviously be one, but most people, they would just be like, yeah, see you later. You're not on the card if the commission's not going to sanction you. That is number one. Also worth noting, Jon Jones checked in today. This has been posted on social media. Most fighters are required to check in on Tuesday. Now, some of the top fighters, I'm not suggesting that anything nefarious is going on here, only to suggest that the top upper echelon elite of the elite get preferential treatment, and that's fine. That's okay in any walk of life. That's the norm. And so for people to bring up the fact that, hey, is it possible that Jon tried these gloves on while he was in Las Vegas over the past week? We saw him at the event over the weekend and said, hey, I don't like these gloves. And I want the old gloves back for this massive fight. Is that a possibility? Well, hopefully someone asks that of Jon at Media Day today and of the UFC, perhaps at the press conference tomorrow if Dana White is there. I don't think that is an unfair question to ask. It is unfair to flat out say right now, this is the reason why they did it, because I've asked that question and no one knows the answer because no one was told the exact reason. But you're not making a big leap if you're at least thinking out loud, oh, wow, they're bringing back the old gloves after introducing, the new gloves in June. And it just so happens to be on the first card featuring Jon Jones, who has been accused of poking people in the eye. And now all of a sudden on fight week, it is brought back. I can understand if a fighter like a Stipe would be annoyed about something like this, especially if you trained in the new gloves. But I could also understand every single fighter on the roster not making a stink about it, because ultimately, what are you going to do?
That raises a lot of questions for me. So for the first, we mentioned the fighters training, but then wouldn't it make sense that Jon Jones had tried the gloves previously? The conspiracy theory at the moment, right? It seems like that's the thing that we are seeing circulating most on X and other social platforms, would lend itself to the idea that like Jon tried this glove and then they go and didn't like it, felt more comfortable in the old glove, and they're making this shift based on that. Maybe it was Stipe, maybe it was Jon, whatever the speculation would be. But wouldn't it stand to reason that they had known they were going to use this and tried it previously?
Yeah, it's very possible, and that's why I hope someone asks him the question.
Yeah.
It's extremely possible, and that's why I don't think it's fair to flat out say they are doing it for this reason. I would love to know what the reason is. If they come out and say, hey, look, we're not happy with the gloves. We, even in my post on Instagram yesterday, there are a few fighters who weighed in. Song Yadong, Damon Jackson, I saw off the top of my head, seemingly happy about this news. But my understanding is they're not just getting rid of the new gloves. They're introducing or reintroducing the old gloves and then saying, maybe we'll use them for 310. Not sure about the events in between, the fight nights in between. And then unclear. It's all very unclear. This is all very... Thing that is super interesting is that there's photos and videos that have emerged today of the photo shoots going on in New York City, which they do with all the fighters. And we do have one particular video that is interesting in photos. These are courtesy of ESPN MMA and Getty Images. This is Stipe with the gold gloves. Now, the gold gloves were introduced when the new gloves were brought in. My understanding is this isn't the old gloves in gold coloring.
Okay, that's what I was
the
gonna
actual
ask. Yeah,
it's the actual. So again, could that just be for a photo? Yeah, absolutely. But it also would suggest that maybe after this, if Stipe wins and there's photos of him holding the belt and whatnot with the gold gloves, they're just going to go back to it. Excuse me, because Jon Jones isn't fighting. It's all very up in the air.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting scenario.
I mean, that's what I'm most curious about is the permanence of it. Like, if they don't do it at 310, if they don't do it ever again, if it's just for 309, they bring back the old gloves, then it's highly suspicious, especially because Jon Jones, like you said, is essentially one of 2 fighters that can get their way on just about anything because of the prominence, him and Conor McGregor. So yeah, I guess we just have to wait and see, because
It reminds me of do you guys remember when the NBA introduced the new ball, the new Spalding ball?
Yeah.
And
when
all
was
the
that,
players
2014?
I don't know. Yeah, right around there. I know it was like in the Nash was MVP era. And they introduced the new ball, and then like a few months later, everybody just was like, "Yeah, this ain't it," and they got rid of it, and it never came back. They completely shifted away from it.
All right, so I'm like curious on what the fighters think. Obviously, they're the ones fighting in them, but from a fan perspective, we actually have a graphic here that shows the differences from the beginning of this year to the end of May to the beginning of June when they introduced them. June 1st is when they introduced them at UFC 302 to now. There's essentially about the same amount of fights. Old gloves, 210, new gloves, 213. But if you look at these, the fans have complained about less knockouts, and there are statistics to back that up. In all but 3 off classes, the KO rates are lower, some significantly lower.
Welterweight is like off a cliff.
Welterweight, heavyweight is down 19% as well.
Yeah.
Light heavyweight down almost 12%. I mean, just across men's weight classes, it's down 10.6%, which is crazy. And across men's and women's, it's 10.3%. And then they have the knockdown statistics. All of this, by the way, courtesy of Nate Latshaw, who is a fantastic follow on Twitter. He has amazing statistics out there. But I mean, there's clearly less knockouts. There's clearly less knockdowns across both men's and women's divisions and a lot of these weight classes. Weird that middleweight is up and flyweight is up, and then women's flyweight didn't change at all.
It's just Alex Pereira. You just put Alex Pereira in the division, and
so I mean, from a fan perspective,
way, that is an incredible graphic, by the way. Shout out to that guy.
Shout out to Nate Latshaw, man. Fantastic follow on Twitter.
And also shout out to Frank for not muting me as I was clearing my throat.
I did hear that. I was wondering.
That was fair.
It's almost as if your microphone has a mute button.
Yeah, I was really wondering.
Yeah, okay.
That. I was just like,
I'm literally having a throat attack here. Can't you not mute me? Like, you can't help me out.
Is it the dry air out there in Dallas? What's going on,
bro? I mean, I'm looking at the chat, and I just figured you would do that for me.
Funk Harbor hanging with you.
How do you not help me out there? How do you not just mute me there? I mean, I don't even understand.
We heard it, but we didn't know if it was going to air. I mean, that's rough. That's rough.
Frank, this is just me thinking you're trying to sabotage me. Is that what you're trying to do? Like, I'm literally dying here of some sort of throat infection, and Frank is like, let me keep this because everyone wants to hear me clear my throat for the next 4 minutes. I'm supposed to think that I have to mute my microphone when you have a thing right there that you could just press?
Oh, I thought you were like, guys.
He was trying to butt in.
Oh, you thought he was trying to butt into the conversation instead of just
here.
starting.
I looked at the chat, and this is like the closest I hopefully will ever get to like saying something controversial when you think the mic is on. This is why people get in trouble, by the way. This is why people get in trouble, because you have audio people who actually want to enjoy the process of seeing talent get hung out to dry.
Wow, look at this. Frank, this is defamation of Mysterious Frank right here.
I'm literally sweating here. I go out of my way to try to provide a service to the audience, and Frank can't press the mute button.
Okay, Lonnie's got the Fort Worth flu right now.
Yes. All right. Let's get back on track for a second before Frank gets fired.
Less knockouts with the gloves.
Less knockouts with the gloves, but wouldn't it also stand to reason? I'm just trying, I've been working through over the last 15, 16 hours myself, kind of trying to figure out the motivation here. If we do buy the conspiracy theory that this is because Jon Jones wanted to fight in them, and everybody is talking about the eye pokes, are we essentially suggesting that they want Jon Jones to be able to eye poke people, that the UFC has decided?
No. I don't think that's the thing. Listen, there's a chance that they're just not happy. There's so many things are up in the air right now, and you don't usually like to talk about things that are this important. And can I just say, I haven't seen people really suggest this, but this is a pretty big deal. These are the things that you are using to win a fight.
It is
this
equipment.
Isn't it's like, how many times have we seen in boxing? It's not really a thing in MMA that we're used to because everyone just gets the same gloves.
Yeah.
But how many times have we seen in boxing where a guy says, I don't like these gloves, I don't like those gloves? Part of the process in boxing, usually the night before, people check the gloves. The opponent gets to check his opponent's gloves. Team comes in. This is a really, really big deal, what you are using, especially when you're talking about, how thin they may be, 4-ounce gloves. I also saw Vanessa Demopoulos talk about this as well, that she thought that they are too thin and they don't protect the knuckles enough. So this is a really, really big deal. But as of right now, we don't know the exact reason for the switch. It just does lead to many questions. Is it possible that someone of great stature said, I don't like these. I'm not used to fighting in these. I have never fought in these before. This messes me up. I'm highly superstitious. I've trained with the old gloves X, Y, and Z. Yeah, absolutely. It's very possible. Is it possible that the UFC said, we've gotten a lot of complaints, we don't like them, we're going to tinker, we're going to revisit this in January? Yeah, that's possible too. I just think it's a massive development midweek, and you would be kidding yourself if you didn't at least raise the question considering one half of the main event.
That's the key, and you pointed out midweek. If this was something they announced a month ago, certainly there'd be speculation on why this is happening. I think most people, if they did this a month ago, I think most people will be going toward the knockout rates. They'd be going, oh, the knockout rates are down. They're trying to juice the numbers and get them back to where they were. It's the timing of it. It's very bizarre that all of a sudden, to your point, a piece of equipment, a piece that is very vital to the fight itself and not just for aesthetic. In boxing, they're able to look at each other's gloves. You mentioned, right? The opposite corners are able to inspect the gloves of the fighter that they're facing. There is a whole process. There is a whole ritual around this. In MMA, it is not like that. And so it is critical, and it is bizarre that it is happening at this point in fight week.
It plays perfectly into the conspiracy theories of Jon Jones wanted this because of how powerful he is within the organization, his history with eye pokes and everything, and it happens to be the card that he's fighting on that they make this announcement. But then also, to your point, would he have tried these on before at some point in training camp? Because there's just no way that he's just been training old gloves and then he's like, oh, wait, I forgot about the new gloves. Or maybe that is something that happened. I mean, it's all just conspiracy theory, and we just have to find out once we see, do they use them on 310? Do they start using the old gloves at fight nights? Is this just a way to reintroduce them? Ariel, you mentioned, speaking with some people, and I haven't seen anything on Twitter, but are any fighters that are fighting on 309, have they come out and complained, being like, damn, I trained with the new gloves my entire training camp, and now you guys are throwing a wrench in my plan?
Certainly not publicly. I have not seen that. Questions have been raised privately, but I've not seen anything publicly. I do want to mention that I reached out to a ton of people, and I did hear from people who are close to the main event situation on the A side of things. Actually, I don't know if they're watching right now or what, but finally did hear back. And at least what they're saying, I'm talking about people close to Jon Jones and his team, at least what they're saying is this was a surprise. This was news to us. We trained in both sets. Obviously, we're happy to have the old gloves because that's what we used before, but we did not ask for this. So, that is what they're saying. Good people, take them at their word. I would love to hear how Dana White responds to this. What is the reason? Because look, if it is in fact, hey, weird coincidence. Yeah, I get it. I understand what people are saying because trust me, like that thing blew up yesterday. But trust me, this is me talking as Dana, had nothing to do with any of that. We're tinkering. We don't like them. But if it ends up being we're just going to bring them back for 310 or 311, then I don't know how you don't say, what? Like, what was the point? Like, because there's no way it was the New York State Athletic Commission that was like, nah, we don't like these. I mean, they were just in New Jersey. Yeah. That's one of the best commissions in the world. They were in Las Vegas, one of the best commissions in the world. It's not like they just introduced these and the commission is like, wait a second, nah, these don't fly here. So to me, it's a fascinating thing. And if it was a card like, let's say it was Abu Dhabi, let's say it was 308, and it was just Max and Ilya, you'd be like, yeah, that's kind of weird. But it's just, I mean, it is kind of funky that it happens on this particular one, but I guess sometimes, coincidences can happen as well.
Well, I mean, there's a lot that would point to it potentially being related to the main event, right? Stipe hasn't fought in many years. Jon is somebody who's only fought once in many years. There is a comfort and there's an understanding that might happen, and also Stipe has the benefit of you couldn't imagine him complaining about anything, right? If they told him he was fighting with no gloves tomorrow, he'd be like, yeah. He has the benefit of being so carefree about most things that people probably aren't pointing the finger that direction. So the spotlight falls necessarily on Jon. There is really like an attention to that. As you said, you spoke to some people on his team and they say that they have not asked for it. Correct me if I'm wrong. The UFC has not announced this in any capacity,
I was
right?
just looking at that. Nothing on Twitter or anything about it.
So if, Ariel, you had not reported this, it gets even further into fight week where this is now happening and nobody has said anything about it. To me, that casts further suspicion, right? The idea that, like, this was not something that they came out
I mean, Stipe's taking pictures in the gold gloves.
Yeah.
Like, this is, it's definitely not something that they're outwardly announcing.
Do you know what's weird to me? I've talked about this before. Like, I use TweetDeck, and I have lists. You know, lists. Like, do you guys do that as well?
Yeah,
we talked
of course.
about this. And so I have, I have a Knicks list. Great win yesterday. I have a Bills list. I have a sports media list. I have a political list. I have an MMA list, MMA media, like all the different sites, all the different news outlets. Of course, Jedi Goodman is there, and all my boys, you guys, and Media Day is definitely not Frank. Actually, I blocked Frank. I can still
is Frank
see
even
tweets
still here?
Right. We're using the list.
No, Frank's not on the list. Actually, I noticed that Uncrowned is following like a bunch of us on Instagram, and they're following someone named Mysterious Frank, which is a cat.
Perfect.
I love it. Perfect.
But not the actual real Mysterious Frank, which actually makes a lot of sense because at this
You don't want
point,
to follow the.
I'd say Frank is on life number 7 of 9.
Oh wow!
Wow.
No, it's just
How
like a
did we
cat.
get here? How did we get to
Just
this?
like a cat.
Okay, so we're in the MMA media list.
You're in the MMA media list.
Oh yes, of course. Sorry, I just went down the sabotage rabbit hole. And there's a bunch of fighters that have already spoken to the media, right? Like the media day is well underway, including Stipe. I don't see a single. Everyone clips things off.
Yeah.
I don't. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I've not seen a single tweet of someone asking about the old gloves returning.
I asked super producer on air Jordan to see if he could find anything, and he has not returned anything yet. So which means like, I don't think this is becoming a story and issue. I will say I wouldn't be surprised if people are asked and don't know, right? Like it's like, why is this happening? What do you think about it? I don't know if anybody's like having too strong of an opinion, or maybe they've been asked not to have a strong opinion. But it is fascinating.
The question.
In reality, though, it's not for the fighters to really answer, right? Like the one we want to hear from is Dana White and or UFC, because it can't be Vanessa Demopoulos making these. Like we need to hear from somebody who actually has the decision.
If I'm talking to Stipe Miocic right now, that's my first question.
Yeah, were you?
And Stipe has already talked to the media, and I have not seen the clip. I haven't seen the full thing, but I would think that that would be something clipped off. By the way, worth noting.
I could be wrong. I'm looking at some pictures of Michael Chandler, and he's looking great in his brand new custom shorts. It looks like he's wearing the old gloves in the pictures.
Yeah. No, I'm saying. I mean, this is what they've told everyone, unless they're going to change their mind now because we reported it. This is what they've told everyone.
I think we're just saying in contrast to Stipe wearing the new ones for seemingly no reason.
It's going to be crazy to not see the iconic gold in the title fights. So synonymous with UFC title fights at this point.
I think they just did that for for
posterity, for future use. But Chandler,
if they're the UFC, they could also make the old gloves in gold rather quickly. I'm sure they could call that manufacturer.
Have to assume,
Yeah, I think they could get that like today.
Yeah.
But I do want to say it is worth noting, in fairness to everyone involved, because we're trying to be as fair as possible here. Stipe has used the old gloves his whole career too. There's a very good chance that he's happy about this as well. You know what I mean? Maybe he feels more comfortable in them too. I think that's worth noting.
Not just happy about that, but as I said earlier, like the speculation is toward Jon because the attitude of Stipe Miocic makes it very easy for you to assume that he doesn't really care, because he doesn't seem to care about much of anything when it comes to fighting other than stepping into the cage. And so it could be Stipe who wants them. It could be Jon. Like, we know nothing at this point. We have to have an answer from somebody.
We have to wait and see. That's all we can do at this point.
But it is the objective truth, the part that we do know that can be said now, is this is very bizarre and could not just be like, this is not something that if it was related to the knockout rate, they just go, you know what, this is something we decided not to announce until later into fight week of UFC 309, one of our hugest events of the year at MSG. It's just a bizarre thing to be happening at this point.
1,000%.
2 minutes ago, by the way, ESPN MMA posted a video of Jon with black gloves on and trying them out as he's checking in. He wouldn't do that if he's not using those gloves because they would be gold, right? If he's going to be, you're not wearing the black gloves.
That's right.
This is the new era. Do you guys think this is much ado about nothing, or do you agree that this is a massive deal?
Am I tripping, or is this kind of a weird... We're really getting deep in the weeds here, but is this not a weird caption? Jon Jones tried on a pair of black UFC gloves during UFC 309 Media Day?
Yeah, everyone's talking
about it. What's the specification of the black?
It's bizarre, man.
Also, they're filming it from his... Oh, no, there we go. I'm trying
You're
to
talking
freeze
about the ESPN
frame.
MMA tweet?
Yeah.
Enhance. I'm trying to see if these are the old or the new. I can't tell.
I don't think it's much ado about.
Why would he be trying on black? Why would he be trying on black? He's not.
I'm almost positive these are the old ones.
I don't think it's much ado about nothing, but I don't think the actual fight. I think it's much ado about nothing when it comes to the fight. I think it is not much ado about nothing when it comes to how did we get to this position. Does that make sense? Like the actual machinations of how this came about and why this came about to me is fascinating, and I think we need to have an understanding of that, because if it comes to light that, let's say, a fighter on the card went, I need those gloves, and they willingly changed it for that, that would be something worth noting, because now we've got a power shift. There is somebody who is powerful enough to be able to do that. As far as the fights themselves, I don't think it's that important.
I think I can confirm these are the old gloves. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, if anyone can confirm it.
This is investigative research here. They're bigger, they're puffier, the UFC on the strap as well. So fascinating stuff. Fascinating stuff. Yes. A bit of drama here on UFC 309 Fight Week.
What else do you have lined up for today?
I was going to say,
tell us what's going on.
What's the plan for DFW today, man?
Yes, I'm actually. I think it's at 6 Eastern, or is it at 5 Eastern? Here it is. Doors open at 5 Central, which is 6 Eastern. I believe the press conference is at 7 Eastern. I'll be hosting the press conference involving Iron.
Yes.
Iron Mike Tyson. Catch me pausing and saying that.
Iron!
There it is. Oh, yeah, of course.
When's your meeting with Frank to discuss his future?
Of course, Frank.
I just have to say, Arn made I watched the entire Netflix countdown, and Arn made it. I got a big kick out of that.
Well, I mean, I only said it once, so it's, of course.
I know, but it was so good. Like introducing Arn.
I know. I'm aware. It's one of the black lights.
It's 28 million subscribers, or however many.
It's one of the big misses of my career.
Are we gonna do?
Heart's gonna be racing when you drop that iron.
I was gonna say, are we gonna do a little bit of like a pause? Are we gonna like?
I'll tell you right now. I'll give you a preview.
Yeah, please.
I'll give you a preview for all of you. I'm gonna introduce everyone, and then I'm gonna take a pause because I think it needs a little
build up the drama. Yeah.
Yes. And now let us say hello to the most brutal, the most vicious, the most ruthless, his style impetuous, his defense impregnable. He is ferocious. He is often imitated, never duplicated. He is inimitable. He is the one and only, now and forever, the baddest man on the planet. Iron Mike Tyson.
Nailed it.
Wow.
Nailed it. There it is. Iron Mike Tyson.
Very good.
I can't wait for
Arn
Part 2.
By the way, is a reference to his famous post-fight interview with Jim Gray. My style is impetuous. My defense is impregnable. I'm not going to go with the whole he wants to eat your children.
Eat your children. Praise be to Allah.
Yeah.
Praise be to Allah. Alexander. He's no Alexander. I'm a conqueror. No, I'm not going to do all that, but
I will tell you.
Preview.
Just we're going to get into a preview of that fight later, obviously, but I'm getting a lot of texts, man. They feel like that guy is back. They feel like that guy who was in that ring giving that. The public is starting to feel like that version of Mike Tyson is back. So it's exciting times.
That's the goal. That's the goal with the promotion. I have to say, the suit on the countdown, if you haven't watched it yet, Netflix, Mike Tyson, Jake Paul countdown. The suit was fantastic. Ariel, got to give you some credit there. Looked great.
Shout out to my Taylor Zahid for that one. And shout out to you guys. Have a great show. I will be watching. I will be listening. Please do give us a thumbs up in the chat.
Thank you to everyone who is
enjoying us on this lovely, lovely Wednesday. Subscribe, follow, download. Look at all the great things afterwards that we have been doing on the channel this week as we prepare for a massive, massive week. And Frank, offline, let's just chat a little bit after the show.
Can you show us the minibar before you go?
Offline. All right, guys.
Enjoy DFW, brother.
So much.
And best of luck this weekend.
Thank you, Ariel.
Much love. Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching this video. Hey, before you go, do me a favor. Hit that sub button. Give us a thumbs up. Hit the little bell thingy as well. Leave us a nice comment or two. We appreciate you all very much.